It's that time again, the tier list, and this year with even more cases. So let's get straight into this. For the ones that are new here, welcome. This is a video where I rank all cases I have reviewed and actually held in my hands, from S tier, which is the best of the best, to F tier, which is also the best, but best to avoid. So let's start off with the sheath. They really updated this case for the better this year, and the fit is now a perfect 10 out of 10. Along with that, they still feature very clicky buttons, and they even remove the texture on the bottom so it's more comfortable to hold with your pinky finger as well. And since you will hold this case for hours, that's a big plus. Compared to the Synthesis or Paragon, this is now a little softer of a case, as you can pinch it in. I think the texture is the best here as far as the grippiness goes. Very good MagSafe too, suede-like inner, no sharp edges anywhere, easy to install, easy to get off the phone, and as we've seen with my last drop test video, if you drop a Caudabe case, you won't get any damages or marks anywhere. It's therefore a very durable case as well. S tier. They also have the Synthesis. On the Synthesis, they don't feature a soft suede-like inner though, and you can feel the edges of the MagSafe ring. Not sharp at all though, but I'd prefer they smoothen these out just like Gear 4 Zag did with theirs, with those sloped edges at the MagSafe ring. Now last year they still had the texture at the bottom too, but this year they got rid of that just like they did on the sheath, which is just great to see. Very clicky buttons here too, and the same camera control cutout as on the sheath, which is perfectly usable and smooth. This case is very strong in comparison to the sheath, which is a little more flexible. Older versions had that scratching issue where you would see every scratch really easily, but they fixed that, as their newest version has a totally different finish on the backplate. As you can see, the new one is much shinier. Not only does it look better, you won't see those scratches at all. I just thought that the sheath was a little more comfortable. A tier. Finally, the Paragon. Still that texture on the sides, albeit very subtle here in comparison to the other two. That backplate is completely smooth here, which is also a nice contrast. Some colors I like, some I don't, but that's mostly personal preference. Something they did right on every color here are those metal buttons. They all look amazing. They are very clicky and tactile, so it's as awesome as the rest of their lineup, as all cases from Caudabe now have that. The fit is also very good, a tighter fit like you're used to with Caudabe, but adjusted to perfection, so that it's still very easy to get off the phone too, without sacrificing that snug fit. The front protection is subtle and swells up towards the top and bottom, which is great for swiping across the screen. That soft suede-like inner here too, which is still awesome, and as far as the strength of this case goes, it does not underperform in comparison to the Synthesis. A tier. BodyGuardz. So this brand was totally new for me this year. The Ace Pro is a clear case, but with a very unique looking gradient on the back. Looks very cool. Fit is excellent, a pretty flexible case though. MagSafe pretty good at like a 6.5 out of 10, and very clicky buttons. The cutout for the camera control button is not the best though, it's a pale top cutout with higher edges. It is usable, but for actually clicking it, you need to angle your fingers a little oddly. Therefore, it's not for people that use this button on the daily. Good camera protection, just a plastic ring, but very strong. On the sides, a special finish on the plastic and even a dotted texture, which make for a good grip. The backplate feels just like a clear case, which is also good, and because of the color, you won't really notice those smudges very quickly. It comes with a lanyard already attached, but if you don't like that, it's easily removed via the inside of the case. It features a good equal front protection and perfectly usable cutouts at the bottom. The only thing is that the edge of the USB-C port towards the backplate here is very strong, and you will feel that while holding the case. Still, it's a decent case, so I'll rank it B tier. They also have the Paradigm Pro. They claim that with this case, your battery life will be better, or at least last longer. They claim to do that with cooling gel on the inside of the case, which feels really good no matter if it actually works or not. It's like a soft rubber type. And they also claim to do it with these so-called cooling vents. Just these slits on the side. Yeah, I'm sure it will do something, but it's probably more of a gimmick thing. Fit is still excellent. The camera control cutout is a little different, but for the better. It's now a full top cutout with a lowered edge, meaning it's more easily used now. Buttons are still as clicky, so that is amazing. Love the consistency here too, and the MagSafe might be even a little bit better at like a 7 out of 10. Now, aesthetically, I don't like the air cooling slits, but I think it's funny what they did at the bottom, where they removed the speaker cutouts and now try to push out the sound at the front. It works though, it's not any worse because of it, but not better either. Put this one into B tier. Woodcessories. Now, I always ask for your input, and one viewer in particular put me onto this brand. Let's first start with the Bio case. Apparently not made from plastic, but a mix of cornstarch and a few other vegetables, which is cool. The one I bought was with MagSafe, but I think it's supposed to be a build-it-yourself type of package, with the included paste MagSafe ring, which then fits into the inside of this case, which is one way of selling both, I guess. But if you do buy it without, there is quite an edge there. I guess for a corn case, this actually feels really refined. You can feel there is a grit to it, but no sharp edges anywhere. A top pill cutout for the camera control, clicky buttons, which was a surprise for me, but pretty skewed bottom cutouts. Not sure why they look off. Even though it features a soft connection piece, it's not slapped off at all, so the fit is definitely good. Now, I would be very curious to see how this material holds up with a few drops, and I might do it. For now though, where to put these? I think for the price, they aren't really anything special, so I guess D tier is a good fit. They also have a clear case, and like always, I try not to comment on the yellowing aspect because it differs per brand, but I must say that this clear case feels really good in the hand. A very nice fit to it as well. Not easily slapped off and without soft sides. I think this might be a perfect contender for a clear case that yellows slower or not at all. Good equal front edge, very strong MagSafe, clicky buttons, it basically has it all. Feels even better than the Apple original clear case. Very comfortable pill top cutout for the camera control button too, so yes, this one is great. A tier. And that's a big contrast to their leather case. This one feels off everywhere. The power button gets stuck, no clicky buttons, fit is weird, and very loose at certain corners. This isn't it. The MagSafe is alright though, as like a 6.5 out of 10, but that's about the only positive thing I've got for this one. The camera control cutout just does not work with that leather case. It's too hard of a material to be comfortable with a cutout. So a button is a must for me when it comes to these. At least with these pill top cutouts, because it's literally unusable for me now. I don't even think the leather is that grippy. It feels like a vegan leather, sort of sticky too. Not great. I'm sorry, but this one goes to E tier. Finally, they also have the bumper case. They claim it's wood. I think that's the reason for their brand name, I guess. But it feels exactly like laminated plastic. So if it's really wood, then I see no reason to use this, other than a plastic-free world, I guess. It won't give you the feeling of actually having a wooden case in your hands, if that's what you're after. At least the edges of this wooden plate inside the case aren't sharp to touch, like is the case with the walnut Mous case. The shape is also blockier, making it unique, and even though it's once again a pill top cutout, there's no edges, as they sort of flattened it here. Still does not work as well as a full top cutout though, and the other buttons aren't clicky either. The last thing that is unique with this one is that the speaker cutout is no longer a cutout, but a grid in the case itself. Looks pretty cool, and it's a whole lot better than the regular cutouts in my book. Good MagSafe too, but not enough to save it. D tier. Then there's of course the original Apple cases. I had high hopes for the silicone cases, especially when it comes to the color matching aspect. But the one that really matches well is the stone gray, when talking desert titanium iPhone. Now, if you've watched my drop test, you already know what I think of this case, and it seems to be exactly the same here too. In that video, it was the only normal case that caused damage to the iPhone. And that is just so funny to me. Very clicky buttons though, and here we'll also find that camera control button, but it's much smaller than with the Spigen Ultra Hybrid T, for example. And I just thought it wasn't anything special. On par with Supcase's button, to be honest. So if you really want a button as of December 2024, I'd really go for Spigen. Now, corners are all easily slapped off, and even though I think the shape and the materials are really comfortable, how much is all of that worth when the whole idea of a case is to protect? Add to that silicone, when used like this, is also pretty susceptible to dirt, so if you have a darker color, you'll be cleaning it more frequently in comparison to a clear case, for example. But at least with the clear case, you'll actually see the color of your iPhone. C tier. All the way from across the seas, we have Ghostek. Now, I already wasn't a big fan of the Nautical Slim, but what they've done this year just straight up amazes me. And not in a good way. I mean, look at these buttons. What is that? Are these better for diving? Am I missing something? Because if it is, and you use this case for anything else, they are absolutely the worst buttons I have ever seen on a case. The fit is also very tight, and that's without a screen protector this time. It's doable, but requires a lot of effort. And for that effort, you aren't rewarded because look at this screen. What the hell is that? It's really moving and bouncing around. How can I even take this case serious? To add insult to injury, the USB-C plug is also just unusable. It's crazy. I think you're supposed to pull this mini tab, like, are you serious? It's also so tight in there that you need a pair of pliers to move the plug. We've got our first F tier. Luckily for them though, if you want a waterproof case with IP68 certification, they also have the regular nautical. And this is the go-to once again. It features usable buttons and clicky too. Good fit and easily installed, which is also funny to see in comparison to the slim variant. MagSafe is good, but not surprising or anything, like a 6 out of 10. And it even features a camera control button. Both versions do, by the way, but it's not used for the haptic touches. It only works as a button, so for taking photos or activating the camera, which is fair with such a case, I guess. The front piece doesn't wobble around like the slim variant, so it's actually a usable screen. And the whole case feels comfortable, inspires confidence with the bigger corners and especially with that honeycomb pattern on the side for extra grip. I think this is a great choice. A tier. Then, once a favorite of mine, the Atomic Slim. It still looks amazing. The feel of this case is also very unique with that aluminium instead of plastic on the sides and back. Comes in with all kinds of colors, but they do have flashy ones like this purple. Now, they do seem to be very popular cases, since this color was pretty much the only still available to get at a short notice, and to be fair, it does look pretty cool. Awesome front protection, not so clicky buttons, and the pill top cutout for the camera control, which is actually really usable. The camera control button is easily clicked, and that doesn't happen a whole lot with these types of cutouts. So very good. It's also comfortable to hold, a heavier case though, but what bothers me the most is still that bottom part. It has a pretty deep USB-C cutout, and that is exactly where you hold this phone with your pinky finger. And those sharp corners just dig into it. It's a horrible experience to hold it like that. I know they watch my videos since they reached out multiple times, so they either think it's alright or they just don't care all that much. And that's fair. I mean, if people keep buying these, why even bother? I guess. For my video though, it's not a good look. C tier for the rest of their case. Now, purple seems to be their least favorite colorway, since we also have it here for the covert, which was also sold out pretty much for every color. Great fit, lighter case. It's slimmer too, compared to the Atomic Slim. Very good MagSafe at like a 7.5 out of 10. And you've guessed it, very clicky buttons along with it. Pretty grippy case too, which is always a good thing. And pretty much the only negative here is that the camera bump seems to be excessively big, which may get in the way of certain accessories. But other than that, it's a pretty good choice actually. I love the pattern on the sides too, and it really makes it grippier than it would have been without. And even though it features a soft connection piece with that cutout for the camera control, it's not weaker because of it. It's actually a really tight fit, but easily removed as well. The button is also very usable, so as of right now, it's not any less because of it. I do feel there's better choices though, so for that, it goes to B tier. This year, I finally checked out ESR as well. The Tough Case has a two-part design, so for the ones that like those built-in screen protectors. Easily separated by pushing them from the corner and then moving the soft silicone sides off. What I notice right away is the fact that the backplate magnetically aligns itself. I think it's done via the regular MagSafe ring, but they must have added something because normally that doesn't really happen. Very cool nonetheless. More than enough screen protection, clicky buttons, and a very unique camera bump here as well. The space in between the camera lenses is now gone, but still offers a camera ring on top of that as well. Very rugged feeling case. It also features some sort of grid in front of the speakers at the bottom, which is also a cool feature, and even though a top pill cutout for the camera control, it's still very usable. Finally, offers very strong MagSafe magnets as well. A tier. They also have the Cloud series, a silicone case like we've seen before from Apple, but a little thicker in its design, and a better suede-like inner. A very good fit, and that is very special for a silicone case, because normally those are slapped off very easily. For the camera control, they went with a full cutout, which also works great, but will expose one side of the phone. And the full cutout also makes for a weaker nearest corner, which is absolutely slapped off easily. Customizable camera bump, which is pushed out easily and can be clicked back in, which I thought was pretty cool. Very strong MagSafe, and that design on the ring just looks amazing. And even though fairly clicky buttons, they are harder to push. B tier. Then there is the Zero series. A very flexible case, and therefore there isn't much strength to it. But there's still enough material to actually make a difference. It still has a decent front bezel as well, but especially at the top and bottom, where it sort of swells up. More than enough strength on the MagSafe magnets too, albeit like a 6.5 out of 10 here. The MagSafe ring has that same design to it as the Cloud series, which looks great. It also features corner pieces to ensure no wobble will occur when it lays on its back. But even though slim, it just doesn't feel like the naked iPhone experience. So if that's what you're after, then I must disappoint you. The finish of this semi-clear case also feels dusty. There is really no other word I can use to describe it. As if there's dust on there. Just doesn't feel great at all. D tier. The Flick stand is here to save the day though. One of the most premium feeling cases of their lineup. This case has a near perfect fit. Easy to install, easy to get off the phone, and it does not compromise on its security. Has a great front protection with that swelling at the top and bottom. Features a very strong clear backplate complemented with grippy silicone sides. Clicky buttons, very strong MagSafe, and even a kickstand on the back, which does not look awful. And that MagSafe ring doesn't have a full circle because it features that unique design aspect in combination with the kickstand. The kickstand works great, and you can easily grab it from the bottom USB-C cutout, and there is a click to it when you want it to hold. Now, as far as the cutouts go for the camera control, this is among the most comfortable so far. It just works. The MagSafe ring isn't feelable from the backplate, only from the inside can you feel the edges, which also works wonders for that refined feel I talked about. S tier. Finally, we have the Classic series. Let's start with the Classic Hybrid. It maintains that refined feel from the flickstand case, but without the strong backplate, because here the whole case is sort of flexible. That's also why I think this will yellow pretty fast. It's only like 18 USD though, so we shouldn't judge too hard here. And for that price, I think you can afford to buy two during the lifespan of this iPhone. The silicone clear sides are naturally grippy, which is great for holding the case, but when you're swiping across it, which is the case when talking camera control, it will sort of slow you down, which is the exact opposite of what you would want there. So all in all, I'd say it's mostly a forgettable case, but not bad per se. C tier. And then there is the Classic Pro, but I feel like there is nothing pro about it. A pro version of the Hybrid would be the flickstand, not this one. It features that same dusty finish, and there is a slight texture to the sides which I cannot stand either. Once again, it's dusty or sandy, I don't really know how to describe it here. I would either go all out or don't go at all. Those microscopic textures aren't really for me. Grippier than the Zero series and features very clicky buttons, so that's great. Good protection too, but sadly the case has some unrefined edges at the bottom part, and I hate the texture at the bottom. It does come with interchangeable buttons, but even those don't feel pro, rather cheapy. D tier. UAG. Let's start with the Civilian. The removal of the soft silicone sides replaced with hard plastic is still a disappointing change, as the old design was much more comfortable. The backplate is now even flatter, losing its unique style, though the design stripes and slide elevation remain for the Civilian look. On the plus side, the MagSafe strength is better than ever, and they added some design elements that are better, like the subtle orange on the front protection. The camera control button, now a cutout, feels a little awkward to use due to its bulky corners, and that connection piece is angled in a way that it makes it sharp to touch. That same experience is at the bottom, where it's more of a pressing issue for me. Very clicky and comfortable buttons though, excellent fit, and I am a big fan of that folding in backplate design. Looks amazing. C tier. Then the Monarch Pro. Once again a major upgrade in MagSafe strength, and you love to see it. And where the Civilian gets flatter, here it's even more defined, and it's looking great. The case lays completely flat on a table due to these special corner pieces, which is another great feature of this case. The buttons are very tactile and clicky, the way it should be. On the sides we see that honeycomb pattern too, which looks as good as the previous years. But then we get to the bottom, where this exact piece is very sharp, and legit sharp this time around. It's very uncomfortable to hold with your pinky finger. It's such a shame that something as dumb as this makes a case less desirable. I still very much believe in its ability to protect your phone, with my drop test as proof, and love the aesthetics, but it's just not comfortable. They really need to step it up when it comes to this. They've become lazy as people keep buying it. I cannot put this higher than D tier. The Pathfinder has gotten that MagSafe upgrade as well, so it's very strong here too. Very clicky buttons and useful, easy to find. And just like the rest, a button for the action button, which was a cutout a year ago. Even though not perfect, the bottom is not sharp here. It also features those straight edges, which make it easier to operate the camera control cutout, which by the way has that big rectangle cutout again and is comfortable to operate. Now, even though I like this different design on the sides, I must repeat myself and tell you that the honeycomb pattern is much grippier than this version. And they should really use those titanium colored screws on the design as well to make it look even tougher. Funny enough, I have to put this one higher than the Monarch Pro. B tier. Now, I am not a huge fan of that nylon material on the backplate of the Metropolis LT, but it's a very slim case, and I like that about it. You can feel and see it gives a lot of protection, but without the bulk. But sadly, here they brought back that sharp piece at the bottom, so I am not even going to try. D tier. Luckily, they also still have the Plyo. It looks great, offers a lot of protection, feels grippy, and it does not matter what color iPhone you have. It will always look great. They offer ones with smoked edges as well, for if you're scared of yellowing, but they've noticed that too and made the sides from a stiffer material. So gone are the days of that soft transparent silicone, which were very comfortable, I must say. But it was indeed inevitable that they would eventually yellow. I therefore believe them that with this version, the yellowing should be a lot less. No sharp edges here, and luckily that also counts for the USB-C port. So it's very comfortable to hold. Very clicky buttons as well, which if I recall correctly are ever so slightly larger than the previous years, which I like. Still features a lot of front protection and a strong plastic camera ring to protect these set of lenses. The fit is very secure but easily removed, so it gets my seal of approval for sure. A tier. The Essential Armor, a relatively flexible case which still feels very protective. Strong MagSafe magnets, easily installed because the case is flexible, and of course also removed as easily. But really just so easy without losing any security at all. You cannot push off a corner, so it will most definitely not happen when dropping this case. I really like it. The camera bump is that triangle shape again for the 16 series with a very strong but simple ring around the set of lenses. More than enough to protect it. The corners are flattened, but still very much visible. Sadly though, this makes operating the camera control button a little harder in my opinion. Very clicky buttons, which are also easy to find and are easy to press too. No sharp pieces or edges at all here, so that is awesome. A tier. And then finally, the Plasma XTE. Buttons are as clicky and great to use as with the Essential Armor, and the MagSafe ring on the back of course functions as a kickstand. The hinge will make sure it's closed properly every time, which works well and feels really premium. No sharp edges here too, so the XTE is safe as well. The XTE does have those bulky corners though, so it's the same story as far as the camera control goes. The fit is good, although on the edge of being too easy to remove. I could not replicate it snapping off the phone with falling, which means it passed the testing and it is good, but only by a small margin. A tier.
Giant magnet? Giant magnet.
Now, Rokform has two models, but they are pretty similar, so I'll rank them the same. I love the sides on this case, which make it a very grippy one. The clear backplate I love for showing off my color iPhone, so that crystal one would have my preference. And I use it all of the time with that added magnet puck in the middle too. Very good fit. I remove it all of the time to clean it thoroughly, and I've already dropped it multiple times as well, without any visible damages. It's comfortable to hold and very nice to just slap against anything metal, which I also use a lot. Very strong MagSafe and awesome front protection as well. You do miss out on that sleek feel for your iPhone though, but this case is my new Monarch Pro. S tier. I used to love and recommend the classic case to everybody. This year though, they just changed it a little too much, and you know what they say, never change a winning product. It shows here too. The classic case has become a shadow of its former self. The camera bump is too big, so the whole magnetic aspect, slap it against anything metal, just does not work any longer. As you can see, it just slides down. Therefore, it's become a general rubber feeling case, which is still good, don't get me wrong, and very comfortable to hold, with amazing magnets for MagSafe, just not anything else. And that was the whole selling point for me. There's also a bigger front protection, which looks off without their screen protector, of which I am not a big fan either. They might need to upgrade this one with their telescopic magnets too, if they want to keep that camera bump. B tier. Luckily, they also have the new Elite case. And even though that has its own issues like the weak kickstand and the camera bump, which flies out now and then when you're getting the case off, or what about the annoying to install side grips? Still, the telescopic magnets are great, and that really saved this case for me. The grip in the middle also just works, and I keep using it even though I am not a huge fan of MagSafe grips. So that's a really good solution for me as well. But the pinky pillow is a huge deal for me too. I love that idea, and I hope I influence them to consider such an upgrade, since as you may have noticed, I always complain about sharp bits and pieces exactly where you hold this phone with your pinky finger as support. And as much as I can complain about installing the side grips, they do help a lot with grip. And once you've chosen your color, you really only have to install them once. So I'd still put this into S tier for sure. Mous. Now, when the news came of that camera control and the first cases rolled out, I think Mous took most of the flag. I thought and still think it's not justified. I've seen so many cases where a full cutout means a weaker corner, but here it wasn't conclusive. I actually like the design as well. It looks unique and it's comfortable to use with the sloped edges next to it. No sharp pieces or anything. The only downside being that the screen is partially exposed. And for the Limitless 6.0, that means less protection. Luckily though, they've since come out with a camera control button. I think the new button is good. The top layer of that button is a little rubbery though, as if it's silicone. So that gives it more control over that button, but it's also a little different than the original. Still, I think it's very usable, and people who use that button will love it. Just remember to go for the speckled fabric for the most comfortable one out there, as there might be very subtle unrefined edges on the others. A tier. There's also the Clarity 3.0, and now with the same sides as the Limitless, so no longer the plastic ones. As far as the grip goes, that does wonders for it. Aesthetically, it's a little subjective. I thought the previous design was better, especially with that unique camera bump, but it's probably for the better as far as the protective side of it goes. As with my drop test video, you all saw how the plastic got damaged really fast. So this more durable side will probably help with that too. MagSafe isn't amazing, but still enough at like a 6 out of 10, and the fit is very good, really like a 10 out of 10. The front edge is also more than enough and also features very clicky buttons. A tier. Lastly, they have the Super Thin 2.0. Very unique looking case as well, and probably a favorite for the minimalist case lovers out there. Top cutouts for both the power button and the camera control, and it does look good, I must say. On the other side, very unique looking cutouts too, and they all have that rounding towards the actual button. A bit of a sloped edge so that it feels comfortable. I noticed that on the camera control button, that it makes it a little harder to press though. Features very subtle front protection, almost as if it's one of those aramid fiber cases like Benks or Pitaka, but it does replicate that naked iPhone feel pretty well. For fit cutouts though, which don't look the best in my opinion, it does feature that felt inner here too with that same awesome design. And unsurprisingly, MagSafe is much better at a 7 out of 10. Now lastly, I cannot help but notice that the bottom cutouts are just off. The speakers are not in the middle at all and actually looks quite a bit off. B tier. Nomad. Now you all know I am a big fan of the rugged case. This year is no different. The color on that case also matches amazingly well with the Desert Titanium iPhone. So a double win. Since my first drop test video, I have the most confidence in this case, as the material sort of bounces back up. Really cool to see in action, and inspires a lot of confidence. I don't even flinch when dropping this anymore. Features exactly the same buttons, so the top and oval cutout for the camera control button, and textured buttons for the action button and for the power button, which are all metal buttons by the way. The MagSafe strength is the same across all cases here, so still that 6.5, which is more than average and good, but still not great. Nonetheless, S tier. The Sport Case was good previous year and is exactly the same this year. You love to see it. The case feels strong, but still a little bendable. Has a nice felt inner lining, which is always good. The fit is also perfect, like we're used to with Nomad. Easily removed as well. The sides are slimmed down, which not only looks great, but is also great for the grippiness of the case too. We'll also find those metal buttons, with the power and action button having a texture to it as well. The camera control button is a cutout and one of those oval ones which is not a deep cutout where you see the edge of the phone itself, but only the top part. The backplate has a funny material on there. It's satin, but it's also glossy. At an angle it's glossy, but when you're looking straight at it, it's satin. It's still not the grippiest of materials, so keep that in mind, but it does feel really comfortable to hold. S tier. The modern leather case also has some design features we've seen before, but is definitely a different case. For starters, it feels slimmer than the other ones. Now, of course, it's slimmer than the rugged, but it also feels thinner than the sport case, even though the measurements are pretty much identical. Along with that, there's also the backplate, which is now made of a Horween leather in the limited edition color called Green Chrome. Detailed with silver/titanium colored buttons, which really complement this color case. And looks awesome. Plastic ring on the camera bump here too, in black, very strong, and still does the job. I just think that this combination of a TPU shell with leather on the back is just the best way to do it in my opinion. I've never had a good fit with just the leather. So awesome job here. S tier. And then lastly, the folio variant. Pretty much identical to the modern leather case, but this time with an attached front flap, with room for multiple cards. There's place for more than one card per slot too, so at least 6 cards, with room behind it for cash or even more cards or notes for example. It also still comes with the removable magnetic clasp, which is easily installed from within and just as easily removed if that's not what you're after. Even though upgraded last year with 2 magnets for the clasp, the magnets are still pretty weak though, and I'm not sure why they still haven't upgraded this design, because it's also still in front of the MagSafe magnets when you close the case. Its design is therefore a little flawed. So for a bookcase, it will go to C tier. Bellroy. I had high hopes for Bellroy. Unfortunately, I was disappointed with their whole lineup. So let's go over those real quick. So let's start with the Venture case. I just really like the shape of this case. Reminds me of the Nomad rugged, but different. That slightly lowered backplate with the material choice, awesome. Features a very soft felt liner on the inside in a vibrant orange color, metal buttons on the side in silver, and comes with an already attached strap for your wrist. And even though it features a top pill cutout for the camera control button, it's at least a comfortable one, I thought. But then I noticed the fit. I can slap off the front with the lightest smack I have ever given a case. And that's just not good. So the fit is not snug at all, making it a very dangerous case to use, since when you'll eventually drop it, there's a good chance it will pop off the corner and bounce around a few times more after that, with a fully exposed screen and corner. It's just such a shame because I really like this case, but because of the fit only, E tier. They also have the mod phone case and the 3-card phone case. Both are pretty much the same idea though, but where the mod phone case has the removable wallet at the back, the 3-card phone case has that built in. Both had the fit right, which is funny coming from the first one, so Bellroy apparently does know the measurements of the new iPhone, since the fit here isn't loose at all. Actually very snug. Both have a solution for cards, which you can check out in detail over at my dedicated video, but to sum it all up, they work, but they aren't anything special. Furthermore, that little handle where you open this trap door though, isn't the most comfortable when you're holding this case. Kind of sharp. and the power button was getting stuck, so something is off there too. They also claim it's edge-to-edge leather. Well, to me that really doesn't look like it, since its top and bottom and even a tiny bit along the whole sides are plastic and not even done nicely. Put these into D tier. I also got to check out Tech 21 and I'm glad I did. Let's start off with the Evo Pro. I really dig the color here. Looks like the Halo Master Chief armor, relatively strong case too. I did notice you can feel the MagSafe ring from the inside though, so they should smoothen these out to avoid scratches. Fit is excellent, really a 10 out of 10. Easy to get off the phone as well. The buttons on the left side are very clicky, but on the right side, meaning the power button, not at all. Now, the case is a thicker one, and you can notice that in its camera control cutout too. It's very deep. That's also a big issue for me. I like the design element on the back too, where it gives the illusion of a small frame with the black sides around it. Seamless towards the sides, no sharp or annoying pieces, and multiple types of textures as well. The backplate is smooth. The second layer has a more apparent texture, and the sides remind me of the Caudabe synthesis. So very grippy as well. At the bottom, you'll also find a USB-C plug, which is a little too stiff, but works. Overall, awesome case. A tier. Now, the Evo Max is basically the same, just with that unique camera bump, which is able to move to the side so that you can take a photo or video. But it's wider than the actual case once opened, which gets annoying very quickly. And even though it may look cool, how much are you really going to use that? C tier. The Evo armor looks really cool with that unique texture, but also the design on the backplate. The color is also really cool. It also reminds me of the Ghostek Atomic Slim. Very clicky buttons, and this time with every button. Very nice and tactile. Now, while it doesn't look like it, the back is smooth, but overall a very grippy case. The camera control features that top pill cutout again, and once again it's too deep to use comfortably. It also features that soft connection piece, but it isn't any weaker because of it. It also has a skewed side design where it's narrower at the backplate and gets wider towards the front, which is really comfortable for holding. Good MagSafe at like a 7 out of 10, and pretty much my only feedback would be the texture at the bottom, where it just has to be completely smooth. B tier. The Evo Check also looks very unique. Still a flexible case, even more so here, and it has this X design all over it like Elon Musk made it. It's sort of tinted too, where you can see through it at like a 75% rate. Very easily slapped on the phone, but also easily detached. Buttons are nice and very clicky, and the camera control has a cutout I haven't seen before. It's like a top pill cutout, but like almost flat on either side. So it's really as comfortable as using the naked iPhone, but still offers the protection for it. Great job. The case has a rounded feel and offers a good camera bump. Pretty minimal front screen protection though, and it feels rough on the bottom where your pinky finger supports it, which is not ideal. The case is just a little too thick to use it without having to put your finger over the screen though, so there is still that. D tier. Now, the lightest case is called the Evo Light. Of course it is. It reminds me a lot of the Thin Fit from Spigen in its golden days. Very clicky buttons, perfectly usable pill top cutout, good camera bump, made from that same piece as the case, which always looks very good. Those skewed sides, which is also nice, and the overall texture of this case feels really good. Soft, but has a little grit to it as well. The camera control cutout has that soft connection piece here too, but once again, it's not easily slapped off, like at all. So the fit is really on point. A little disappointed in the fact that it does not feature MagSafe though, which to me makes this case a no-go because I use that on the daily. But if you don't, this might be for you. C tier. Then last but not least, they also have two clear case variants. The Evo Clear and the Evo Crystal. Both are pretty much identical, but the crystal variant has these dark gray details to them, which make them look unique. Very good MagSafe strength, and I really feel like this overall shape is the most comfortable clear case I've ever had my hands on. Fits really nicely in the palm of your hands. Once again, a top pill cutout for the camera control with a little bit more of an edge to it in comparison to the Evo Check, but still very usable. Very clicky and tactile buttons here too. And since they are recessed in there, the sides aren't any thicker because of it, which is also great. I'd say if you want a clear case, you cannot go wrong with either. A tier for both. Now, when it comes to the Aramid fiber cases, Pitaka is a name you cannot forget. But like I said in my best Aramid fiber video, they made it a little too thin and naked this year, at least for my taste. Pitaka has the ultra slim and the tactile woven cases, but they are exactly the same case, just a different texture and design on the back. You can still refer to these cases as the Mag Easy 6, I think. So unlike Benks cases where you really have to put one side in first, here it doesn't really matter and still has that satisfying click to the fit every time. They do have those cutouts at the top and bottom, probably for aesthetics, but now the phone is a little too much exposed, which I would avoid when it comes to these thin cases, because there's already a low level protection. And it's on such a critical spot too. If it were to fall exactly there, the result would probably be a shattered screen. Now the front screen protection is also noticeably less though, and really relies on these four corners for that protection. It does cover up most of the iPhone with that curve inwards, and it's still higher everywhere, but like 1 millimeter. It's very subtle. MagSafe is as strong, so still the 9 out of 10. Still feels very premium. I would just personally be pretty worried about having it dropped. For what it is though, A tier. They also have the military case, which is the Mag Easy 6 Pro variant. Now, this one offers a lot more protection than the regular ones, but it's slimmer than the previous gen. It was also pretty blocky previous year. And now they made it into a rounded case, which is also really comfortable. Very clicky buttons too, which is awesome, and they have a glossy black finish on them. As far as the camera control button goes, they went for a top cutout, but a big one at that. So there's actually a lot of room to use the button. But it still makes it a little harder to press in comparison to the naked iPhone. It does feature a soft connection piece, which also results in a weaker side. I wouldn't say weak side, but it did not survive the slap test. The rest of the fit is good, a little too snug if you ask me, since removing this case can be quite a task. But you guys are still blasting me for the previous tier list, since 50% of you like that in a case and 50% agrees with me that it's not something you want in a case. So it really depends on personal taste, I guess. Put this one into B tier. Aulumu is a brand with a very unique artistic style to their cases. This year they even featured a new one called the Shockproof case. This case has like 2 layers. The shell, made out of TPU most likely, and a silicone layer on top of that. That layer will be visible at the front and makes installing the case a little harder, but makes it very unique looking as well. Getting the case off is also a little harder, but it's still doable. Just gotta watch out that your iPhone does not shoot out. Now, obviously, they went for a huge cutout as far as the camera control goes, but with their unique design, it does look less out there and more like a feature. That transparent piece that's part of the design there is also very hard and sharp, so not comfortable at all. The corner pieces are really annoying. They look like they were ordered in a smaller variant that did not quite fit the entire cutout made for them. And you can feel that too. Finally, the power button has that issue where it gets stuck too. So this case, as of right now, is a mess. Now I have good hopes they will fix it, and if they do, I'll make an updated video. But for now and this video, I'll put it in E tier. Then the vegan leather case. Very good fit, easily slapped on the phone, but once it's on there, you can forget about ever getting it off. Now, like I just mentioned with that military Pitaka case, it's a 50-50 here as far as the opinions about this go, so I won't take that into my judgment. That huge cutout for the camera control button is here too, works well, but does feel a little naked. You can see the sides of the iPhone very clearly, and I would be worried about drops here. The nearest corner is also weaker and easily slapped off. Talking about buttons, they are very big in height, which now makes them a little sharp from the sides. And they aren't clicky either. Nice texture, but I feel like this synthetic leather just isn't as grippy as the real deal. The case itself has a soft inner, and I still absolutely love the design features that are present next to the camera bump as well. No sharp edges here though, which is great. C tier. Then the A16 Frosted, a case which I loved last time. Very clicky buttons here too, no issue with them either. Good looking design on the backplate, and it still has that 3D effect to it as well, where certain lines look as if they are deeper into the case than the coil in the middle, for example. Also has these slits in there which look cool but are very sharp feeling. They should have really sanded these down for sure. Good front protection, very good MagSafe magnets too, and that unique camera bump just like previous year, but now not as loose as back then. It's not movable at all. They got rid of a few unique details which I dislike, but it doesn't impact the functionality, of course. D tier. And then lastly, they also have an aramid fiber case this year, which does not underperform to Pitaka or any known aramid fiber brand, which surprised me a lot. Funny enough, these slits I just talked about are back as well, but perfectly sanded down. So apparently they can make it cool and comfortable at the same time. This case features total cutouts for the sides, with those four corners as the main way of protecting the phone. Now they do have a thin line going across the sides to protect the back side, and because of that I do think it feels less like a naked iPhone experience, because that thin line is also a little wider than the actual iPhone. So you will sort of hold that more than the sides. B tier. So I've also seen every Supcase case there is for the new iPhone. Let's start off with the UB Mag. These have an excellent fit, are easily installed, and getting them off is no issue either. Soft silicone feeling sides with a seamless transition towards the clear hard plastic backplate. Very strong MagSafe magnets on there, which is great to see, and the camera bump is no joke either. It's strong plastic around the camera, but also thick, so it doesn't feel minimal at all. The case itself feels like it's wider at the front and sort of narrows down towards the backplate, which feels very natural in the way that you hold this case. The only part which feels odd is the bottom, where the edges of the USB-C cutout are not completely refined, making them a little annoying. It does have that camera control button, but even though it works perfectly fine, I felt like Spigen did it a little better. Still, for the price though, you cannot beat it. MagSafe is also very strong, by the way. I just felt like there are better options, but the case is definitely not bad. B tier. Then they also still have the UB Pro Mag with that camera protection plate. Still love the feel and looks of this case, and that plate is still made out of that heavy zinc alloy, which feels really premium. I just hate that the camera bump plate is bigger than the case here though, which can get really annoying and feels like it just doesn't belong. The slimmed down sides in combination with those grippy stripes make for an excellent grip. But due to the bigger corners, it makes using the camera control button a little harder. No button on this one, which I don't understand, but they'll most likely add that with later versions. Still very good protection and very competitive pricing as well. B tier because of the cutout and the camera bump situation. Now if you do want that camera control button on a case similar to the previous one, why not take a look at the UB Grip case. This case is basically everything I want from the UB Pro Mag, but better. I don't really need that plate. I mean, it was cool, but this one works out too. They took the other case, removed the plate, made it a clear back plate, added that camera control button, and added a kickstand. Works really well though, and the MagSafe within the kickstand is also really good. A tier. But then, if you want the full protection, the UB Pro is the only one for you. This two-piece design has a screen protector front too, so it's really the full package. The front protection does feel pretty flimsy though, but similar to the Ghostek Nautical for example. It has a huge cutout for the camera bump, but funny enough it really works out perfectly fine. A button wouldn't be possible here I think due to the thickness of the sides. So it's solved well. Comes with one of those belt clips and it's turnable too. Very bulky case, but a lot of protection here. If you want the full protection or a dust-proof case, look no further. B tier. When it comes to value, you cannot forget about Ringke. They had a new one this year called the Rugged Gear. It's a mix between the Fusion X and the Onyx in my opinion. It's not as strong as the Fusion X because it's still bendable like the Onyx. The texture on the backplate is rougher than the Onyx, but the corners look a lot like the Fusion X. It features one of those closed camera bumps where the space in between the lenses is covered too, so it's really protected well. As far as the camera control button is concerned, they made a top cutout here with sloped edges around it, which are a little bigger than usual, which is great. And they got rid of that dotted pattern there too, so it's smooth all around there. The other buttons are really nice but lack that clicky tactile feeling because that is only present on the power button. Good cutouts for the USB-C port and speakers. The fit is very snug but still easily removable, and there's also enough front protection. B tier. Talking about the Onyx, this one has an even snugger fit. And because of the small front edge, it's kind of annoying to get off since that edge will sort of dig into your fingers. I prefer the fit of the previous case or the Fusion X. It also has harder to press, not so clicky buttons this time around, but the camera control button is easily usable due to the less out there corner protection. One thing I hate, which they brought back, are these tiny rings around each lens. They are sharp, don't look as good, and since the bump is already there, why not utilize it? I'd much rather have them flush or a little lower inside of the backplate in comparison to what we have now. Front protection is good, even though, like I said, the edge is a little thin and sharp feeling. Good MagSafe strength, and since it's not even visible from the outside, it looks sleek too. Just not enough for me. C tier. Then there's also the Fusion Bold, pretty much exactly the same as the Onyx, but with a clear back, and a good camera bump instead of those hard plastic rings around each lens. This camera bump features proper material as well. All the buttons except the action button are clicky, and the transition from the clear backplate towards the grippy sides feels seamless too. Even though not a whole lot of corner protection relatively speaking, it still has these slimmed down sides, with that dotted pattern featured here too. Like I said, pretty much identical, just a better variant. B tier. But then, the Ringke Fusion X. It's still as great after so many generations and not much has changed to it, which is a good thing. The camera bump has that corner piece next to it to make it lay flush on a table. The fit is perfect, feels great and rounded in the hand, and even though it may look like just another bulky case, that's just not the case here. It even feels slim, all clicky buttons, and due to that clear back, I don't mind the closed camera bump since I will still get the look at my color iPhone. Camera control cutout is identical to the Fusion Bold, so a cutout from the top, and they left that dotted pattern and made it smooth around it. Works great, and I can definitely recommend this case for the new series iPhones as well. A tier. The silicone case is still as comfortable as it looks. Just don't get it in a dark color since silicone attracts dust. Or if you like cleaning, go for it. But it's also its biggest flaw since they opted for a weak connecting piece which compromised the nearest corner, which is now slapped off easily. And the other corners not at all. So they did really fix the issue I had with the previous gen silicone case, which is just great to see. Just a little sad that now this new button is the main issue, since that camera control button is now really comfortable to use, which is where most of my criticism comes from if done incorrectly. Still a great case, and if a case doesn't survive the slap test, that doesn't write it off completely, but it is a protection issue. C tier. Then finally, there's of course the clear cases. The Fusion Matte, and the MagSafe version. They all feature soft sides which are nice in your hand, but will eventually yellow. So even though these cases aren't expensive, that's something you really need to consider before purchasing these. It's just inevitable. But if you know this, you can appreciate your clear case for as long as it will be clear and buy a new one after that. Still, the fit on these is excellent, they have good camera bumps, and the camera control cutout is just excellent too. Probably one of the best shapes, since here the edge of the iPhone is also visible, making it very comfortable to use, and not just a top cutout. The MagSafe strength is also really good, so for the money, it's all great value. I also love the matte version, which blurs the color a little for an awesome effect. B tier. Now Otterbox continues their lineup, but they've also introduced one with a camera control button, called the Lumen. This case looks very alike to the Spigen Ultra Hybrid, and I have a full video on what the differences are for if you are interested. But to be short, magnets for MagSafe are like a 5.5, the price is much higher, and the camera control button much smaller. Fit is great though, but one negative is that you'll quickly notice that fingerprints will become an issue on a clear backplate like this one. So that is something you should keep in mind. Good case, but too expensive, and I would just recommend you get this Spigen one. B tier. Now they also have the React case. No clicky buttons to be found. They made it harder to press them too. Full cutout for the camera control, but with sloped edges, which is good and feels comfortable. Does feature that weaker corner here though, so I can smack it off without any issue. The case itself doesn't feel as refined either. The camera bump is straight up sharp and almost like a dull knife, which is crazy. It features much stronger MagSafe magnets and a blocky cutout for the USB-C, whereas with the previous case it was a pale cutout. The case has stronger feeling sides made of plastic, decent front protection too, which you can see very clearly from the camera control cutout. And even though that looks sharp and pointy, it's actually not. So holding it with one hand or two hands isn't comfortable due to the cutout. D tier. The Defender XT is still that two-piece design. A flimsy feeling front with a rubber outer layer. But once they are installed, they are very strong together. Installing them can be pretty annoying though, since the light flimsy part will just get pushed off easily. The sides are very rubbery, so grip won't be a problem here. What will be is that huge cutout on the side. It's got multiple problems. 1. It's uncomfortable to hold. It has sharp edges, especially this part here. It will dig into your hand. And 2. The corners are too big and oddly shaped to still use the camera control button comfortably. The case itself also isn't the most comfortable. It reminds me a lot of the Spigen Core Armor, and that's exactly for the same reason too. The edges are just too sharp and will also dig into your hand. E tier. But luckily there's also the regular Defender, a 3-part design instead of a 2-part design. A layer of shock absorbing material on the inner, on which you can just lay the phone and then click on the top edge. Once that's done, which is much easier than on the XT by the way, you just put the soft rubbery layer over it and you're done. It does feature a huge camera control button cut out though, just like the XT, but funny enough it's not sharp here at all. Since the rubbery outer case has different shapes too, it's not sharp here either. The MagSafe strength is a little less at like a 6.5 out of 10, but I'll gladly accept that if that means my case is at least comfortable to use. It also features that dust and debris cover and now is easily popped out as well. Now the funniest part to me is that here the buttons are actually clicky. And even though it may look and feel like a brick, it's pretty much impossible to destroy your iPhone now, so there is that. A tier. I don't really like the symmetry, not the previous year and not this year either. It's just the overall feeling, like it's an okay case. But like I pointed out in my dedicated video, it's got sharp and unfinished or unrefined edges, but other than that, it's good. I like the texture on the backplate, feels like a good combination between grip and also comfort. Very clicky buttons, which is also a shock, so awesome to see. The case is very easily slapped around the phone, and even though it features that full cutout, it's not slapped off easily at all. D tier. The commuter is forgettable too. A two-part design and installing can be annoying. Sometimes it slaps around the phone in one go, and sometimes the bottom part gets pushed in, making it very difficult to get a good fit around the phone. And that will be one thing, but once it's installed fully and the way it should be, it's so easily slapped off. I wouldn't even go as far as to say that this is an option for your iPhone. Very bad. F tier. Now when it comes to Spigen, the first one is of course the Ultra Hybrid T. The one with the button. Out of all the camera control buttons, this is the best. Even better than Apple themselves in my opinion. Enough room to actually use the button, and the case is exactly like the other Ultra Hybrids if we forget the designs of course. Very good fit, clicky buttons, you know the drill. S tier. Delving further into that, the other Ultra Hybrids aren't much worse. I only think that they should all have that camera control button, and judging from their massive Black Friday sales, they will probably soon update these as well. In that case, you can totally forget what I said about the cutouts. Like the 01, still looks amazing with that design, and I must say the grippiness level is better here. That backplate certainly feels grippier than the T model. It features that deeper full cutout for the camera control, which is also very good, and comes in multiple colorways. A tier. But what I like about the Neo 1 variant is that it goes with every color iPhone. And you can also feel its design on the backplate, which is a cool extra. The coil, the chips, everything has a different texture, which is really cool. It also features that deep cutout, and everything else is also 100% the same here. A tier. Now there is a whole bunch of variations when it comes to this case. Some are worse, some are good, but the general idea with these is good. And you cannot really go wrong unless you choose a case without MagSafe. So the average score would be a B tier, I guess. They also still have that C1 design, and I gotta say they really fixed that fit issue I had with it the previous year. It's night and day. You can now easily get it off without messing up your hands. Awesome to see. Still a huge fan of that design too, which hasn't changed but still deserves praise I think. Very good MagSafe, and it once again features that deep cutout for the camera control button, which is very comfortable and offers more than enough room to click it too. The buttons look awesome and they are also very clicky. That silver front edge looks very unique too, especially in combination with orange this time. Overall, really comfortable case, and I can really recommend this one this year. S tier. Then the Slim Armor. This case features that drop protection material on the inside, which feels very soft. A very comfortable case, feels a lot rounder than the older version, which is better for grip I'd say. Still that strong kickstand on the backplate, which clicks back in very satisfyingly. But when it comes to the camera bump and that ring in the middle which is lowered, I just don't really like it. It gets in the way of holding it, just feels off, but that is my opinion. You might even like it. I like the unique button designs though, very big buttons and they're clicky too, fitting of a more bulky case. Even though it's what the name suggests still, slim. Once again, that deep cutout here too, which works out. The only thing I'd add to that though is that now that the sides are thicker, you can notice the cutout a little more while holding it. Not uncomfortable, but just different. The case itself feels really premium though, so I am inclined to put it higher up in the list. A tier. The Rugged Armor is a relatively flexible case compared to what we've seen so far. Also features a little of that soft foam-like material on the inside and even on the sides. Really easily installed, but a very snug fit. This is how it should be. Very clicky buttons, a grippy backplate with a nice texture to it, contrasted by the soft carbon fiber that is shiny, A deep cutout for the camera control, which is comfortable, and it does feature a soft connection piece, and here it also does impact the corner strength, sadly. The texture is present at the bottom too, so that's not great, and it doesn't really capture that premium feel like the previous one. A good case, but just nothing special. C tier. Now, of course, they also have the tough armor, which I drop tested with the 15 Pro. It's like a two-part design here with a harder backplate and a softer silicone inner. Here though, the backplate feels little less strong than the slim armor, probably a different material. The camera bump is still a little minimal for my taste, especially when it comes to the thicker / bulkier cases like this one. It just looks odd. Still a flimsy kickstand, but even though it may look flimsy, it can take a beating for sure, and it works like intended. The camera control cutout didn't bother me as much, and they now got a button for it too. Getting better, but we're not there yet. B tier. Now I remember the thin fit because I featured it on my 13 series top 5 video. One of my first top 5 videos like 4 years ago, that's crazy. Very strong MagSafe, excellent fit, feels slim, clicky buttons, soft bottom cutouts, deep camera cutout, so basically ticks all of the boxes. Strong and big enough camera bump, a tiny bit flexible, but you can still notice that it's very strong. Unfortunately, suffers from that weaker corner now due to that soft connection piece on the camera control button, and now it's easily smacked off. It also feels a little flimsy around the buttons. All in all, a good case, but just not special, and definitely has some flaws. C tier. The optic armor has a similar camera bump to the one from ESR we featured earlier in this video, and I still think the same about these sort of cases. It features that texture on the backplate again, which makes it a lot grippier and is very good. A seamless transition towards the sides, which don't feature that same texture. On the bottom it doesn't feature any texture, which I love, but it then has a deeper USB-C cutout again, which I am still not a big fan of. A lot of front protection and a very thick front edge as well. So not in height, but in width. And that's very noticeable with the camera control cutout or button too, which is now a lot harder to use normally. The other buttons aren't clicky and a little harder to use. Nothing major, but still noticeable. C tier. Moving on to the Enzo Aramid. This case still feels very premium with its felt inner, which is really soft. Very clicky silver colored metal buttons, which still contrast that black aramid fiber so well, and even though that silver wouldn't be my first choice in combination with the Desert Titanium rose gold-ish colorway, I still love its design. And for every other iPhone, it would look absolutely amazing. So this is my chance to introduce the idea of a rose gold version. Think it over, Spigen. Soft all around, and there is not an uncomfortable bit or piece to be found on this one. Ever so slightly feelable texture to the aramid fiber as well, and once again seamless transition towards these sides. You won't get this case off with a smack at all. Good equal front protection, so no swelling at the top or bottom, and I can really recommend this case once again. Just make sure you know that it's not the grippiest case, but it's still very comfortable. S tier. The liquid air gives me the same vibe as the rugged armor. I mean, it's a good case, it's just not something special in my book. A very flexible, soft case, which is easily popped on the phone for quick protection. Has a rubbery feel to it, so is also very grippy. The camera control button is that deep cutout again, which works well, but sadly has the same issue regarding the nearby corner, which is now slapped off easily as well. I also like that added side grip with these stripes, which due to its material doesn't really need it at all, but it does look cool. But doesn't feature MagSafe, so feels outdated too. D tier. And then lastly, the core armor. I'm not a big fan of this one. What I notice right away are these air bubbles inside of the case. But what's even worse is the feeling of this case when you hold it. It's just not comfortable at all. Features sharp edges. I cannot imagine anyone liking this case, to be honest. More than enough protection though, but other than that, it's pretty basic and meh. E tier. So the ARC cases, or however you want to call these. Some hate them, some like them, but what do I think of them? Well, it looks like my opinion really hasn't changed since last year, since they still have that same amazing fit, which is done by using this rubbery material on the inside of these things and then just sliding them over your iPhone. Really snug fit on there. You cannot slap test these off or anything. Therefore, I think with dropping them, it's 100% fine. And like you saw with the drop test video, nothing happened. And believe me, I was very nervous about that case. The sound it made was horrible though, since it was stone tiles and this thing, but it survived and really not a scratch. I cannot take you guys serious any longer with comments like, that's not a case, or put ARC in S tier and then this case in F tier. Well, I cannot change reality if you don't like it. This case is great, and what's even better is the color combination. Rose gold looks absolutely amazing with your desert titanium iPhone. Absolutely stunning. S tier once again. Now, the sister company of Spigen also had a few cases for me to look into. They had an absolutely crazy Black Friday sale at like 80 to 90%, so let's just say they are probably clearing stock for that camera control button. But as of right now, they don't have it yet. First up, the Parallax Mag. Pretty good fit on this case, relatively clicky buttons as well. Features a few textures on there, like the stripy design on the side, the grippy material on the top and bottom, and then this unique honeycomb-like pattern in the middle. Overall speaking, this case is really comfortable and grippy enough because of it. Now, they did feature that full top cutout, which is the best version of a cutout, but like I said, they'll probably get rid of that. Good MagSafe strength to it as well, but a pretty minimal camera bump. Biggest downside is that corner next to the cutout, which is easily slapped off. B tier. The Athlax looks like it features a pretty rough texture, but it's actually really comfortable. Feels rubbery, although not completely. Pretty flexible case though, and on the inside it also features that soft rubbery-like material. Now, the fit is really exactly the same as the other case, so once again, that corner problem. Same minimal camera bump as well, and the same camera control cutout, which has no texture, so completely smooth. Very clicky buttons, so that's great, and the case feels grippy. Although on the sides it has that dotted pattern on top of the already textured sides, which can feel like a little too much, on level with dBrand for example. And you either really love that or you hate it. Luckily, it's not at the bottom. B tier. Now, the Nano Pop also has that dotted texture on the sides, but not on top of another texture. So it's either completely smooth or a dotted pattern. The fit is also a little better than the other two so far, but still suffers from that weaker corner due to the cutout for the camera control. Very clicky buttons, a bigger camera bump with an accent color of your choosing, and I really like this case actually. Good MagSafe at like a 6 out of 10, and because of the dotted texture on the sides, it's the perfect combination of grip and smoothness. A tier. Lastly, they also have the dual grip. Same as with the Athlax, it's a little too much texture on the side. In combination with that two lines design, I think it's too much. The backplate is really grippy though, so that's good, and once again, neither is present at the bottom. Same camera bump design as the Nano Pop, and the same camera control cutout. A little less tactile buttons, which could be better, and the edges of the backplate towards the sides are a tiny bit rough, as if they needed sandpaper. The fit is much snugger though, so if that's something you prefer, this is probably the choice for you. B tier. Now, last year I thought the Rebel cases were a bit rough, especially the edges, unrefined even. But this year, man, they really nailed it. The Gen 6 Frosted series has such an amazing fit, I think it's one of my favorites. It's so snug, as if it melts with your phone. But if you want to get it off, that's really no issue either. Amazing fit. I can remember very well that I loved the button design, and they are still very clicky. But they've chosen a new design which is much simpler, and I love the previous variant. Luckily, that's the only thing that's worse, because there's absolutely no sharp bits or pieces to be found. It looks very sleek. MagSafe very strong, and the design on the sides is just top notch. The only downside is the top pill cutout, which I thought was too small and not easily clicked, but I really haven't touched that button since release, so personally I don't really care. Absolutely beast of a case. S tier. The Air 2 isn't really my thing though. That dotted pattern on the sides is just not comfortable to me. But it is very grippy. The camera control cutout is better here though, which features more room and is easily clicked. Buttons aren't all that clicky, which is a shame because they already figured it out anyway. No texture at the bottom either. A good case, but not special. B tier. And then finally the Flex 16. This is pretty much the same case as the Gen 6, but without the sides. The way they did this though is absolutely fantastic. There is so much attention to detail, it's awesome. And because they left the sides almost completely open, it feels like the naked iPhone experience. The backplate is also exactly right. The edge of the backplate is rounded and sits on the exact place it should be, so that it also makes it part of the iPhone as well. This is just great. Then a little higher up, it swirls over the edge in a beautiful way to protect the corners, where it drops most of the time. Front protection is only present at the top and bottom, but very good. So you can absolutely lay your iPhone face flat and it will not touch the desk. Also has an amazing MagSafe strength. S tier. So we all know dBrand. It's an exceptionally grippy case with a very unique texture on the sides. It seems they did tweak it a little though, since now it's much easier to get out and into your pockets. It's got a very nice front protection, with the middle being very subtle, but the top and bottom having a very apparent edge. It swells up towards the top and bottom basically, which is great for swiping, since the sides aren't as noticeable. The skins still look amazing, and now with that matching camera bump sticker, I mean yes, this looks incredible. The texture of the stickers is also really nice. Volume up and down buttons are clicky, but the power and action button aren't. So that's something I'd love to see improved upon. dBrand has since updated their lineup with a button, but it didn't make it in time for this video, so I wouldn't know anything about it. A really comfortable case overall with more than enough protection. And this case won't get ugly when you drop it, I'm sure. But we'll find out soon enough. MagSafe is like a 7 out of 10 by the way. A tier. Smartish did an amazing job with their Gripzilla once again. It's comfortable, very grippy, and because of that pistol grip on the side, it will not only look cool, but it will also be very practical. Seamless transition from the clear backplate to the sides, or from the regular backplate. They have multiple options. That clear backplate does have my preference now though. Awesome MagSafe strength at like an 8 out of 10. Grippy texture on the sides, but it's completely smooth at the bottom. Clicky buttons, and the best camera control cutout solution being the full top cutout. But still without exposing one edge of your iPhone, because it's still protected by the case. Equal front protection and extended corners. It also has more than an amazing fit, easily installed but also easily detached, and all in all, you should really buy this case. S tier. Now I saw a few videos online about tech, and I was really curious. At the same time, they reached out and sent over a few of their cases, but when I received them, it was the same story as with the Caudabe Vel. It's just a very thin piece of plastic. Yes, the fit might seem nice at first, but you'll notice very quickly that it's not. The corners aren't even really holding on. Easily slapped off any corner, not grippy at all, does feature very clicky buttons, cut out for the camera control, which is barely feelable, so that's great, but it's not that hard to accomplish, since the case is of course very thin. And honestly, the camera bump does feel decent as well. I can best describe the material as something that's used as a product packaging. It's just not for me, and I am not sure of this yet, but if I were to include these in my drop test, it would probably cost me a brand new iPhone. Oh, and it's not MagSafe compatible, And they tried to fix that with a paste-on ring, which is included. But no, I'll pass. E tier. One of the best aramid fiber cases in the game. I've already put this in my top 5, in my best aramid fiber case video, and now here. So I guess it's not really a secret what I think of it. But let me give you a quick rundown. Full protection, no unnecessary cutouts to expose the screen, a very fine texture, a great fit, one of those where you have to put in one side first though, and it's got a lot of attention to detail. Everything feels polished, and even the so-called fit cutouts have a design aspect to them. Basically, if I were to rock such a thin case, it would be this one. Oh, and the MagSafe is really like a 10 out of 10. Did I say they even throw in a free screen protector? S tier. The silicone back cover from Decoded feels really nice. But I always love silicone cases. They do have some flaws though. That's why I always say go with lighter colors so you don't really see every speck of dust, which is easily attracted to it. It does have a pretty good fit though, but because of that weaker connection piece, the nearest corner is just easily slapped off. A little too easily if you ask me. It does feature very clicky buttons, and they look nice too with that metallic finish on them. Great equal front protection and a nice camera bump on there as well, which gives me more than enough protection. B tier. Then they also have the Stacks cover, but it's also made of silicone. This one feels really nice though. That Stacks design isn't only aesthetics, as it makes the case feel more rounded as well. And while the silicone case was a little flexible still, the core case here is a lot sturdier. Nice felt inner, great fit, and just like the other one, a very comfortable camera control cutout. It does have a soft connection piece here as well though, and the corner is easily slapped off, but not as easily. It's comparable to the Ringke silicone case here, and therefore I'll say the same, and that is that I don't think that this will give protection concerns. Still among the nicest of buttons, very clicky, looks amazing, and that same camera bump here too. A tier. Lastly, they have the leather case, one of the best leather cases I've gotten my hands on as of yet. The camera control cutout is nice, and that is really something unique because normally these feature a hard edge and aren't really comfortable to use. The leather also feels really good, grippier than its peers, with the same clicky buttons as the previous cases. Same design too, and that's also for the camera bump. Nice equal front protection, which as you have seen isn't guaranteed either, so attention to detail is good too. And the nicest thing is that the clay color goes really nice with your Desert Titanium iPhone too. A tier. You know, a funny story is that SandMarc was actually the first one that sent out some gear for the channel. Huge deal for me back then. This time they sent out their cases, but I just wasn't impressed. This leather case feels really premium, and it comes with a special camera bump, or one without. The special camera bump is used to attach all kinds of lenses they sell separately, which is a cool idea. Just looking at the case itself now though, and the first thing I noticed was that the front protection swells up, but not from the top or bottom. No, it actually swells up at the middle, which is something nobody wants. The camera control cutouts are also among the worst I've seen so far. And I know that it's harder for leather cases, but this is really not the way. Its edges are hard and it's not comfortable while using. Buttons are clicky though, so I'll give them that. And it does feel premium. Fit is very tight too, so if you like that, it might be the one for you. If you ask me though, I wouldn't consider this one if I did not need it for any lenses. D tier. While on the subject of leather cases, there is Mujjo. The shield case is a new one for me. It looks very similar to Nomad's modern leather case, but over there the buttons are actually in the middle. Here they are obviously not, and I'm not sure why it bothers me so much. It just looks off. I must say, these are very clicky though, really like a 10 out of 10. The leather on the back feels really premium, but unfortunately the sides are sort of rough, so definitely not seamless towards the sides. MagSafe is a 6.5 out of 10, which is good, But what's not is the bottom. It just does not really feel comfortable since the bottom is plastic and the cutout of the USB-C port sort of digs into your finger. The camera control cutout is very nice though, as far as the cutouts go of course, but easily clickable and really thought out. I'd give this case a C tier. They also have the Mous case. This case is not a genuine leather, but rather one of the 1,000 or more other names they create for leather that's not made from hide. This time it's bio leather, made from corn. And I must say, it feels amazing. And that's just something I did not expect. The fit is very tight though, so they could make it a little easier to remove as well. Buttons are very clicky, and the nicest thing is that they aren't any bigger than the case itself. They are recessed in there, which is a really cool design. Still the same horrible camera control cutout as with the SandMarc cases though, and it's still not comfortable. Nice metallic colored camera bump, and the case is shaped towards it as well, so it's not just set in there. That bio leather feels really nice though, I must admit they've done this extremely well. The grippiness is just on another level. B tier. And then finally, the full leather case. Feels very similar to the Mous case, but the Mous case still wins as far as the grippiness goes, which is surprising too. Clicky buttons, but they aren't in the case like the previous one. Detailed with metallic colors, looks really neat. Sadly, same horrible camera control cutout, weaker corner even though no soft connection piece, and I got this unit for the regular 16 and I was sad to see that the camera bump was off too. A little too much room in there, kinda weird. MagSafe was good though, and once again it does feel premium, never cheap. Good fit also, better than the Mous one, so they did really tweak this from previous year. Hopefully next year they finally step up towards A tier, but for now, B tier. Tineeowl. Now this brand came out of nowhere, and to be honest, when they contacted me asking if they could send over a few cases, I didn't really think much of it. But once I had them in my hands, I immediately thought these were great. One of the most premium, best feeling suede-like inners I've ever seen and felt. It's just amazing. So good that I'm in shock that other case brands don't adopt this right away. The case itself is also very grippy, features dots on the side for increased grip along with a nice subtle texture, comfortable all round, and a unique action button which is now round. Doesn't change it though, just a new design. Mostly for recognizability, they say. It's also so cheap at like $18 US. You cannot go wrong with this one. S tier. Now I did only see the O stand at 360 this year when it comes to Torras. Pretty good case though, comfortable, no sharp bits at all. The shtick with this one is the MagSafe ring, which offers great MagSafe strength but also acts as a kickstand, which is rotatable to make it a good horizontal but also a good vertical kickstand. A little too sharp to act as a grip too though, and I love the design on the backplate as well. Looks really cool. Great clicky buttons with a subtle design to them, and a very comfortable camera control cutout, which is almost flush with the phone itself. And it also features slimmed down sides, which make it a grippy one too. Also a subtle texture to the sides, while the backplate is completely smooth. If you have the Desert Titanium colorway, make sure to check out this color. A tier. So for Zag Gear 4 cases, there is much to talk about. Let's start off with the Santa Cruz. Very comfortable clear case with a grippy texture to the sides. They made this triangle pattern which gets more apparent towards the actual place where you hold the case and sort of fades out at the end. Therefore, it's not placed anywhere else but the lower sides. Very good. The sides are also slightly gray, so they aren't completely clear, which also adds to that theme. Very strong MagSafe at like a 7.5 out of 10, and you cannot feel the MagSafe ring from the outside, which I personally love. The fit of this case is also very good, and I noticed right away that the shape of this case is sort of wider at the front and it narrows down towards the backplate, which makes for a very natural way of holding the case. The Crystal Palace is so similar, I'll rank them the same. I really think that these are one of the best clear cases out there right now. So I'll rank these S tier. The light version of the Crystal Palace is definitely different though. Feels much cheaper, a lot of unrefined sharp plastic edges, and features a very high front screen edge, which is too high in my opinion. And it's narrow too, made out of hard plastic, which isn't the most comfortable when removing it. Does feature strong MagSafe magnets though, at the same level as the previous two, so like that 7.5 out of 10. Did not survive the slap test though, and it just does not look like it's worth the money here. If MagSafe magnets are the only good thing about a case, you know there's something wrong. E tier. Moving on to the next case, the Denali Snap. I think this is the 5th year I've checked out their cases, and I must say the design on the back is simplified, which is a bummer. They always had these cool designs on the backplate. They mostly do this for the magnets, I assume, and I was ready to forgive them, but sadly though, they are only slightly better. So it looks like they just need to use better magnets and not simplify its design. I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10. Now, some things I noticed on the inside of this case is that the MagSafe ring is very refined now. And they also feature a felt liner for the backside of the kickstand. So nothing can or will scratch the back of your iPhone now. No sharp edges, everything smooth, nice texture, great work. I feel like the camera bump is a step backwards though. Oh, and they also have that soft connection piece for the comfortable camera cutout, and the corner is weaker here too. B tier. So then, that brings me to the Soho Snap. An interesting name, with an even more interesting case. Pretty strong feeling case, but soft silicone sides. Features a black backplate with grey sides, and I must say it looks awful. This case also has the same sharp edges as the Spigen core armor, and I hated that too. Clicky buttons though at like a 6 out of 10, and decent magnets at like a 6.5 out of 10. Features a pale cutout again, with a soft connection piece, but the nearest corner isn't any weaker. Good front protection, and a strong camera bump. I'd give this one E tier for its design only, but it's not even a good case, so probably F tier. We're also going to Milan with this one. I've chosen this unique blue iridescent colorway, not because it matches well with my color iPhone, but because it just looks amazing on its own. This one features a very soft plastic-like backplate with a seamless transition towards the sides. No sharp edges here whatsoever. Good MagSafe, but at like a 6.5 out of 10, so not very good. Very clicky buttons, but not pressed easily, which is then a bitter aftertaste. Features the same texture on the sides as far as the design of it goes, but the texture is much more present. You can see that very clearly from the sides. It's a little too much for me personally, but it is very grippy, so I think it's subjective. Features that soft connection piece, but it does not impact the nearest corner's integrity, which is good. Love that pearl-like design, which just looks amazing. Only reason why I'm putting this one lower is because of that texture on the sides, but I do feel it's subjective. B tier. Oh, and then lastly, the Lux Snap. One of my favorites usually. It's a very flexible case, but still feels like a good protective case overall. The inside magnet ring isn't sharp and is very nicely fitted in there as well. The fit is perfect, really good and easily detached. Pretty clicky buttons at like a 6.5 out of 10 and stronger MagSafe magnets than on the Denali Snap, which is funny to me since this one has more and deeper grooves on the backplate. Sadly though, the sides have a very noticeable unrefined edge and they're pretty bad. So bad you can actually see them very easily too now. Especially noticeable with the camera control peel cutout where they just didn't really bother. Really grippy case though, but the final straw for me was the fact that on the bottom it has that unrefined edge too, which gets annoying really quick if you hold it for a longer period. E tier. So I did also check out Speck, but it wasn't really grabbing my attention. The Presidio grip feels really comfortable with that stripe design on the plastic backplate. I think for a plastic case it's also very grippy. MagSafe is good at like a 6.5, and the camera control cutout also works decent. A top pill cutout but reachable, and therefore I experienced no problems with it. This aligning magnet, which is visible, is also deeper than the backplate, which is due to their ecosystem with accessories, but if you don't use it, it will look off. Fit is good, very tight though, but it's still removable. Sadly, the buttons are the worst I've ever seen on a case. Well, maybe now that I think of it, the Nautical Slim had that one. The buttons don't make sound, so it's the exact opposite of a clicky and tactile feeling button. And that's for all buttons, by the way. Definitely good protection though, so it's not a bad case. B tier. I also saw the Presidio Perfect Clear. This is a very unique looking clear case for sure. You can see just how much protection this will give from the sides, which overall looks very aesthetically pleasing, but will also really help with protecting that expensive phone. I mean, very clicky buttons, which once again just blows my mind as to why would they have such a massive difference among their cases. The camera control cutout is good too, with a lot of protection from one side, but lower on the other, which makes operating it very easy. And this version does not have MagSafe, but there is the exact same one with MagSafe. And judging from the other one, the strength should be good. Very tight fit here too, but other than that, it's just another clear case. B tier. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is Benks. The Armor Pro, the bigger brother of the Armor Air, looks amazing. It's just so sleek. The texture on the back is completely gone here though, so it's very smooth. There's a subtle texture on the sides too, which make it grippier. Very clicky buttons again, but the action button is a little harder to press. Equal front protection, which is minimal but will still do the job. Not a huge fan of the camera control cutouts though, and it doesn't feature enough room to comfortably use it. Luckily, they now have a camera control button for it, and I must say it's really good. No rubbery texture on there, it's easily used and feels very similar to the button I love from Spigen. If you like that one too, you'll love this one. The fit is very tight but easily removed, which I always love to see. The MagSafe strength is also very, very strong, more than you would ever need. A tier. Then there's also the Armor Air, the thinnest version of their lineup. Best fit to date for this case. They really refined this process. The sides are now sort of leaning in, which means you can only install it properly if you begin at the left or right side first. Once installed, you will immediately notice just how snug the fit is. The case now hugs and holds the phone in place. There is a cutout for basically every button, which is to be expected on these thin cases, but then they made it ever so slightly with sloped edges, which feel very nice. Not rough at all. The camera control button feels like going without a case. It's awesome. On each corner, they have a little bump on the front protection to make it as protective as possible. For such a thin case, it's great. A tier. Moving on to the Lucid Armor, a very soft feeling case, which is still strong. It's not 100% flexible, but you can bend it a little. MagSafe ring is completely flush with the case, and that's on both sides, so it feels very refined. The strength of the magnets is also top notch, really strong. Fit is also great, a really snug fit. Very clicky buttons which feel premium, and that camera bump once again looks great too. It even features a matte-like finish which doesn't show fingerprints and matches really well with the Desert Titanium. Camera cutout is still not great though, but that's about the only thing. A tier. The Maglab Mist is still a very good case too. Great fit and feels very protective, especially for its money at $19.99. It's amazing value. It also matches really well with the Desert Titanium, at least this color here. The backplate design is also great and doesn't really show fingerprints as much as a fully transparent case. Very clicky buttons which are great to press too, and a good equal front protection. MagSafe is good too, just a very good pick. Still not a huge fan of that camera control cutout, but it's not a deal breaker either. A tier. Moving up to the Dynamic series, the New York and Summit variants feel exactly the same as the Lucid armor as far as the strength goes, still bendable but strong. Features a matte mirror-like finish on the inside, which looks cool. But the biggest design feature is of course the backplate, where the streets shine in the light, making it a very beautiful case. That gold accent color just looks amazing. Premium feeling buttons again, seamless transition to the sides from the backplate, and on these I always notice the design on the sides, on the empty spaces in between the buttons and corners. You can also see the air pockets on the corners really good now due to that white matte finish. Once again, a crazy value at below 20 USD, just feels a little cheaper than the others. B tier. There's also the Montage Armor Pro, which is basically the same as the Armor Pro though, so other than a new design on the backplate, it's exactly the same here too. So we can be short about that one. A tier. The Lucent Pros, a very strong feeling clear case with a little more rounding to it than the average clear case. Very strong MagSafe again here, but the buttons aren't clicky at all and are very hard to press actually, which downgrades its already forgettable design, especially since the rest of their lineup features very clicky buttons which are all easy to press. There is a little line in between the backplate and sides, which is common for cheaper clear cases, and the sides also feel as if they'd yellow pretty quickly. But then again, for only $14.99 being their cheapest case, it may be in line of expectation. A tier. And then lastly, the Vida or Vida Pro. This one I just cannot be positive about. I dislike its fit because it's one of those leather fits where it does fit but slides out easily and doesn't really hug the iPhone. Difficult to press buttons, the vegan leather doesn't really feel nice nor grippy, and the camera control cutout is hard and very uncomfortable to use too. Easily slapped off every corner, so I put this one into D tier. And there you have it. What do you think of my picks for the 16 Pro Max case tier list? Would you rank them differently? If you do want to see the final scores, make sure you pause the video right now and let's discuss in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Whether you skip through it or watch the entire thing, I appreciate you. And even though it's already the 9th of January, I still want to say that I hope you have an amazing 2025.